at various platforms, at various issues and topics. And we request you to kindly do the needful. And also don't forget to download the Arogya Setu app for your own and your family and everybody's safety. With these words, I formally welcome you all to the seminar on the universal acceptance. Uh, uh, I'll just tell you a brief. I know many of you who would be watching this webinar and others who have joined us with this fraternity, they know what Wiki ILA is. So there's something what we created called a initiative called Indian Language Internet Alliance with Wiki. And the need for this was we wanted all the community to come together in the language domain, and since India being the multilingual times like today's when we are going through this pandemic of COVID and everybody is figuring it out, the ways to sustain the economy, the ways to communicate. I'm sure all the more this discussion on the language and everything becomes highly prominent, and Wiki ILA with its initiatives will keep on working with its members and with all the community to take these thing forward. One of the major things which we have now taken up is on the universal acceptance. We are going to work with the whole community. We are starting a local chapter for the UA, and that is with the support of ICANN. With ICANN, we have a long history. Fiki has been working with the ICANN. A couple of years back, I think 2016, we did ICANN 57, and then there are many other involvements which we have done where we jointly collaborated or supported the initiatives. And we are thankful to ICANN for supporting the UA thing for India. We today with us to uphold this cause and to disseminate the information about the same. We have all the eminent panelists. I can think about it, both the nationally and internationally. I formally welcome you all. We have Mr. Samad Hussain, who is joined in from the geography of Pakistan, and he holds a very prominent position in the ICANN. Formally welcome you, Mr. Samad Hussain, who is the Director IDN, which is Internationalized Domain Names and Universal Acceptance Program ICANN. We are happy to have Dr. Ajay Data. He's been a good supporter and a veteran in this field, who is the co-chair for the ICT and the Digital Economy Committee of FICCI and the chairman of Universal Acceptance Steering Group ICANN, and the founder and the CEO of Data Engineers Global Limited. So he wears multiple hats, but I'm sure he's going to do the justice on the co-chair and the UASG thing right now. So I'm sure with his expertise, we can gain immensely. And then we have Mr. Samiran Gupta, who is the head of India ICANN. So this is the first of the initiatives which FICCI has started on the awareness campaign of universal acceptance. We would be doing a multitude of things during the year, and I would request all of you to kindly support us, join as many hands as possible, and give your suggestions. We understand this virtual mode is going to continue for some time, so till this way or the physical, we would need your total commitment and support, and we invite you for the same. You have the details of the Wiki ILA Secretariat. Please feel free to write to us. We would be working in the areas of the general awareness campaigns. We will be doing technical workshops in the seminars, and we would be, of course, working deeply on the community development. Without wasting further my time, I would request now Mr. Samiran Gupta to share his initial thoughts on the ICANN, its working in the UA and other concepts, and then we will take the thing. After all the speakers have finished their talks, we will open up for the Q&A. You can put up your questions in the chat box in the channel, and my colleagues will take it further once all the speakers are done with their knowledge sharing. Over to you, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you so much, Sarika, and thank you again to FICCI ILA for organizing this webinar. So, the main speakers actually are after me, and therefore I'm not going to stand in the way as much, but I'm going to take a little time and speak briefly about ICANN as an organization, what we do, and the community in developing, sort of in supporting the development of universal acceptance. So to start with, ICANN, the core activity is to coordinate the unique identifiers such as the domain name system. And, over the years, we worked in bringing the DNS into local script. So actually, it was way back in 2009 that we started working on something which we call internationalized domain names. And, since then, in fact, in 2014, those who are familiar with this would know that in 2014 that the government of India launched .bharat, or the top-level domain, which is available now in 15 different scripts. So this whole process of internationalizing the domain name system is a way to, perhaps you can say it's a way to bridge the digital divide, so that the top level of the domain name system is available in different scripts. And we're doing this across the world with different scripts. My colleague, Dr. Sarmad Hussain, is with us. He will talk a little bit more about the UF program as we go along. But I wanted to share with those who've joined and who may not be aware that since 2015, a community of Indic language experts, including those who are involved in the technology, as well as those who are involved in academia and business, have collaborated in bringing 9 or finalizing the label generation rules of 9 scripts. And these scripts are Devanagari, Bangla, Oriya, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, Gurmukhi, and Gujarati. I didn't read it in any particular order, but the order that I had scribbled it on my pad. But essentially, what this really means is going forward, you can get a domain name in these scripts and use it. So, so this work has all but got concluded. A little bit is remaining, which hopefully will get done in the coming days. Therefore, again, thanks to the local community to be able to achieve this. Before I hand over to Sarmad, I just wanted to say that, the Indian subcontinent, and India in particular, offers a lot of challenges and opportunities as well in the area of language computing. And during this ongoing global pandemic, we've seen that how local language computing can really support local communities should those capabilities be available. Now, I will not talk so much more about this, but it's really something that for us to look around and observe. Lastly, before I move on, I'd like to say that universal acceptance challenges are not only limited to Indic scripts, but also to other scripts across the globe. It's simply the ability to, read and be able to see and transmit a string which could be even in ASCII, which is the English or / Latin script, in a manner that can be read by others. So there are lots of examples of what those challenges are, and I will allow my fellow panelists to talk more about it. I think we are in for an exciting hour of conversation. So without further ado, let me hand the time back to Sarika and wish everybody all the best for this conference, rather the webinar, and I look forward to taking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Thank you for syncing it up, setting up the brief note about what has been done and how these things came up, and also about NBJP. As FICCI, we were also happy to be part of it, and we look forward to work further on this area with you all. I'll now request Mr. Sarmad Hussain to kindly share his thoughts on the important subject, which I mentioned earlier as well, on the introduction to universal acceptance of domain names and email addresses. Over to you, Mr. Hussain.
Thank you, Sarika, and good afternoon, everybody. I actually have a presentation which is that going to be put up here or?
Mr. Hussain, I think maybe you can just put up there and share the screen so that we all can see. Or
Okay.
Sudhir, have you done that? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce the subject. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what universal acceptance of domain names and email addresses are. And then I guess we'll hand it over to Dr. Data to talk more specifically in the context of India. Next slide, please. So just to set the stage, as far as defining what universal acceptance is, it is a very straightforward concept that all domain names and email addresses should work in all software applications, and with obviously some very evident consequences, because if all the domain names and email addresses are supported, it provides consumers choice, it improves competition, and of course provides broader access to end users who use multiple scripts. Next slide. So I think Samaran alluded to this, that the domain name space has recently expanded. Not recently, actually, the country codes started internationalizing since 2009, and then we got new GTLDs, both in ASCII or English and also in other scripts since 2013. So since then, we've actually seen that the domain name space and the corresponding email space has expanded in multiple ways. And here's, in a way, some categorization of how that space has expanded. Just to talk you through this, we now, beyond the regular .com and .orgs, we also have now new GTLDs in ASCII, which are still 3 or 4 characters like .sky, but new. Similarly, we also have longer top-level domain names like .abu Dhabi here. We also get internationalized domain names like .bharat, um, and they can be completely internationalized. So second level and top level domain, the complete domain name can be actually be um, in a particular script, in any of those scripts, for example, which Samiran was also listing, which are relevant to India. Similarly, email addresses have also expanded. We can have the domain name. So emails addresses have 2 parts: the local part or mailbox name, and before the @ and then the domain name after the @ the domain name part can actually be in local script or language, so it can be an IDN. Similarly, the local part or mailbox name can also be in local script, so it can also be represented in Unicode. Therefore, you can actually get multiple combinations of email addresses. Some of these are actually given, where if you look at the third example, the complete uh, name or email address is actually in a local script. And similarly, having right to left scripts like Arabic or some other scripts which exist adds some additional complications. And the idea is that all these different kinds of domain names and email addresses which now exist applications, online applications should be able to accept them, validate them properly, process them, store them, and display them. And that's really what we want to happen as far as universal acceptance is concerned. Next slide, please. So this, we just did recently a short survey of websites globally. What we looked at was about 1,000 websites in total. And so what we would do is we would go to a contact us page or some of those pages which these websites have, where you can go and add some personal information, and we would add email addresses in different languages in these scripts. on these websites, and we'll check whether the websites accept these email addresses or not. And very interestingly, as you can see that generally it would be anticipated that every website should give 100% result. The new short and new long TLDs, top level domains, are reasonably well recognized, even though new long TLDs are not as well accepted as obviously com or net or other GTLDs or CCTLDs in ASCII. But what is actually interesting is that if we make these IDNs, these email addresses completely in a local language. So, for example, the top two examples, excuse me, Arabic and Chinese, you'll see that the acceptance rates really fall below 10%, and recently they've gone slightly above 10%. And this is globally across the world, and that's what the acceptance rates are. And this is obviously what we're trying to solve for, to look at it specifically from Indian context. Next slide, please. So what we also did was we looked at about 50 websites, popular websites in India. These come from e-government websites as well as websites of in media in India, e-commerce websites in India. And in addition to the generic email addresses, we also used Hindi email addresses in the three patterns which are explicitly marked towards the end here. So, for example, this second last email, local@local.local, was basically a completely Devanagari or Hindi email address. And you can see that even in India, the Devanagari or Hindi email addresses, the acceptance rates of websites is as low as about 12%. And the mixed ones don't go above 18%. So there is obviously real issues which occur globally which need to be addressed. So this is actually what the problem is which we are trying to solve. Next slide, please. So community obviously has identified this as a significant challenge, and to address the challenge, community within ICANN or ICANN ecosystem has organized into what is called Universal Acceptance Steering Group. Dr. Data, who's going to be speaking next, is actually the chair of that steering group, and he'll share more about the activities. There are also other activities within ICANN ecosystem. The governmental advisory committee and ALAC have also started focused groups on UA, and because of this interest by the community and need to address this, ICANN organization has also included UA as part of its strategic plan for next 5 years moving forward. Next slide, please. So the way we are addressing it is that we've identified at this stage at least four main stakeholders. These are technology enablers and developers, email software and service providers, and government policymakers who need to be, we need to basically realize that we need to reach out to these stakeholders, inform them about the gaps which exist, and maybe, help them, train them, and convince them to address these gaps in the software either developing or acquiring or procuring. Next slide, please. And the way Universal Acceptance Steering Group or the community is organizing itself to address this is that it is focusing on different aspects of the problem. There's a technology aspect, there's an email aspect, there is a measurement aspect where we want to assess where we are and what more needs to be done. Communications working group actually works on developing messaging to reach out to the relevant communities globally. Within this context, we've also started working in developing local initiatives. We know that if it's a global problem, even though it's a global problem, it can only be solved locally. And the way to do it is to partner up with local organizations and let them tell us, how they would want to lead those efforts locally and try to address those problems. So, for example, in India, FICCI is helping us lead the efforts in India to address universal acceptance issues for example, scripts which are relevant to local communities. And similarly, we also support, excuse me, you ambassadors who would obviously help us address these questions locally. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary of how different working groups within the community in ICANN ecosystem are working towards addressing different stakeholders locally and globally. And next slide, please. This and As I end, I just want you to point. I want to point you to the USG website. It's usg.tech. Please go and visit it. It has lots of relevant materials in case you're interested to explore more details. I've shared some documents here, but there are many more there. Next slide, please. And you can also, as a community, get more involved with the USG community online. You can sign up for these working groups. And if you obviously need any more information, please feel free to reach out to us through these emails. And I'll stop here and thank you for patiently listening and for all the questions. We'll come back to the questions, but for now, back to you, Sarika. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Thank you for very rightly pointing out the initiatives and the things done by the ICANN and ICANN considering UASG as part of the strategic plan and about the various groups. As Vicky, we are also very happy, like I mentioned earlier, to work with the ICANN to lead this local initiative, and we will also working on the US investors and EU investor and other things going forward in the various objective and the plan for the UA for India in the coming few months. With this from the international flavor and about the multilingual body, the multinational body, I'll now come back to Dr. Data, who is of course I've introduced, is also the co-chair for our committee on ICT and digital economy, and also holds the position of a chairman of a universal steering group. So, Dr. Data, your subject is very crucial and very important with respect to that. How do you see the IDNs and their role in the multilingual internet in India, and what are the things which you feel collaboratively can be done? With these words, I would request now Dr. Data to kindly share his thoughts on the same.
Thank you, Sarika. I think I'll take 30 seconds to let about Samiran and Samad know. Samiran Gupta, who heads ICANN in India, is the man to go for anything we need from ICANN perspective in India. He had been a great supporter to bring this day here, and this was not possible without the active Samiran's guidance and support to bring this local initiative here. Thank you, Samiran, for supporting the community and throughout the way. Samad, I know him because of Neo Brahmi Generation Panel, but I can tell you he is one man in the world who may be responsible to bring the languages alive for the domain name perspective in India. When I say that, the words may fall short, but the impact is huge. Thank you, Samad, for supporting this entire work and the community to bring it here. And today, your presence makes much more powerful and significant for bringing the UK initiatives here. Of course, we as a community have chairs, vice chairs, and volunteers. We are 500 plus volunteers in UA, and we all work globally for ensuring that all domain names on all email addresses are accepted equally. Let me bring my presentation now. Tell me if you are able to see it.
Yeah, Dr. Data, we can see that.
Thank you. So, this here we are talking about local initiatives. Sarmad has already covered about all domain names and all email addresses must be treated equally. You may find few things repetitive, but let me give you a small exercise. Which one seems correct to you? 25% English, 75% from the content perspective on internet. 50% to 50% English and others, and 75%. You can type in the chat. Though we are not in a formal communicating platform, it would have been more interesting. But you can at least imagine in your mind, and you are going to see the answer soon and find that out, that whether you are correct or not correct. And some of you may be absolutely wrong. This is the situation right now. It's a 1.5-year-old data, but it's still relevant. The percentage must have changed. Don't go on only 50. It may be 55, 56. The idea is that we have content in English and non-English content in almost equal state, and it is increasing. Let us do another exercise. Let us do email. So you have these all three emails come to me. So one email address on test A is my Hindi email address. Probably you can copy it from the presentation. If not, then you may type it in Hindi. English is the top level domain name, which is a long top level domain name. You can see .accountant. It's a very long top level domain name. And the third is a mix with where non-ASCII characters are in the mailbox name and the domain name is in ASCII. I will leave you with this slide for a second so you can type it out. And when you type, you can try out with your email software and find out its compatibility where you are ready or not. While you guys try, just listen to me that there were some original 7 general top level domain names, which was .com or .org, .edu, MIL, .net and INT. And now we see .common CCTLDs, like we have .in. We have several examples here, and the new examples which you can see .top, .xyz, and you also see an example of .accountant, and this is a valid email address, by the way. There are certain examples of internationalized domain names. They are all registered by us. They are all live. They are all valid. Some of our customers, some of the companies who have registered, and they are able to put their website on those domain names. So you can see they're all right examples. This is how it looks like, and this is possible today if you are new to this word. So what is the role? What we think is UA ready or not UA ready? I think this screen very clearly determines that if there is a top level domain name which is long, more than 3 characters, in an example in front of you is .org. If it is there, the website must open, then you are in UA ready. Just below that, you can see the website doesn't run. It means that you are not UA ready. U means the website owner or the browser which you are using is not UA ready. Next example is Tokyo Japanese characters. That should also work, and it should bring the website in front of you. And the third is you can see an email address. So if we type an email address, just to see an example of ajay@data.bharat, that should say email validated, and whatever process has to happen should happen. If the 3 boxes below produce this kind of result, they don't share the website or they don't accept the email ID as the valid, it means UA readiness is not there. Sarmad has already shared these principles, but let me repeat in a very different way. So let us say we have a website of pmo.gov.in, which is our Prime Minister's website. And you have an email ID. When you type in a contact us page or a complaint page or a registration page, whether the website allows you to type an email ID of your choice. That could be my Hindi email ID or an email with a top level domain name or a simple email ID, which is with 3 characters like Gmail, Hotmail offers you. To type in, it means it is accepted. Then can it validate it as a valid email ID? So that's another step to create. Third is store. So once you provide an email ID, obviously the website is supposed to store it somewhere, so that can be processed further. So that's the next step, which is process. So maybe a transaction has to complete, maybe an account has to create it, maybe email has to come to you on that email ID. Is it able to process that? And maybe when you go back to that email account, and if you have credit account, is it able to display it back the same way, the way you have entered? If the cycle gets completed for a website, that website can be considered as UA ready. So this is what we do. So Sarmad has shared this bit, but let me just quickly do it. Review, build, outreach, and writing. We review websites, as Sarmad just shared the 1,000 websites information. This is what we did. We reviewed it and we came with the information. We review development frameworks, we review browsers, we review operating systems. Right now, we are also looking at CMS to be reviewed, email servers also to be reviewed. So we are doing all that task. It's a continuous process. UA community does it continuously. Once we review, then we build use cases. We generate reports, test environments, and bring it to the community so that they can use them and take it further. And that's the way outreach works there. So we have a comms group which takes the entire things further. We have ambassadors, like we met Harish. Harish is here in India, and we have many applications which we are progressing. So if you are interested in UA activities, you can actually start working, join community, and maybe you're an ambassador in your future. So outreach is one action where we do live discussions, workshops that we are talking right now, presentations, all those things combining together is our outreach scope via UA. And the most important thing out of that is a writing, which we invest a lot of money around, where we bring in the case studies and make them live as a document. So we hire professional agents, let the companies be communicated. Like ICANN study was just produced today, a few days before. And this is live right now. How ICANN is progressing to become UA ready, you can read that. Government of Rajasthan did a project which we executed. This is also a case study available. How a government has become and taken a leadership position to offer a email address to every citizen and move into the digital readiness. Knowledge databases, white papers, quick guides, all things are being created by UA. They are all available on this website, uasg.tech. Email, Sharma has already covered a lot, but just to give you one simple line, that what is EAI? Email Address Internationalization. So any email address which has at least one character with non-ASCII, it is known as email address internationalization. So I will not go more around it. I want to tell you why it is important and how global companies are supporting this. So if you have an email ID in Hindi, you may have an actual question whether it is going to work with other service providers. So let me share with you today that Gmail infrastructure and Microsoft entire infrastructure for email is supporting UA, which means if you have an email ID like this, which I am sharing here from ajay.data in Hindi at uasg.tech, or whatever email ID you have, ajay@ajaydata.earth, as I showed you before, and I send an email to ajaydata@outlook.com, now it is possible. Send an email, and if I receive an email, I will get it back from them. So it means I can receive email addresses, communicate with these email addresses freely without any issue. So this gives a lot of confidence. that companies like Microsoft, companies like Google are moving in that direction and already invested to support these languages, email addresses in their infrastructure. So it is future. How do you bring in next people online who do not speak English? They are going to consume these email addresses. So we must process the universal acceptance focus into each company and move in that direction. So I have skipped 2 slides which Sarma has already shown. So this ends my little bit of presentation, so that you know a little bit about what UA is more than what Sarma has shared. You can visit UASG.tech, join working groups if you want to. You can experience EAI. Government of Rajasthan is giving. I have seen a Cyrillic email address in poster.rus. So there is a free email address by Core Mail in China. BSNL is giving here. Government of Rajasthan and Data Mail, of course, my company is giving. If you want to reach out to us, you have my Twitter ID and email. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much. This ends my presentation, and probably we can have now discussions with questions.
Thank you, Dr. Data. Thank you for giving the description and the activities and about mentioning about the USG tech and various things which as altogether we are looking forward. I have few questions which has already been highlighted, and I'll will put it forward to the panelists. They can volunteer themselves to answer which one they feel like. And I'm sure the subject is quite interesting. That's why we've already got a couple of questions. I'll go for the first question. The first question is by a participant. He's asking how and when things can be standardized and accepted everywhere, so that simple email clients and servers too can also accept these email IDs. And he also made a suggestion that maybe awareness of you can be included as part of the curriculum for the universities. So that's something which we can look at it. But his question is already that how and when the things can be standardized and accepted everywhere, so that simple email clients and servers too can also accept these email IDs. So Dr. Data or Mr. Gupta, either of you would like to answer this?
I'll let Dr. Data go first on this.
That's exactly we are trying to do here through UA, that how do spread the awareness of standardizing and acceptability of all the domain names and email addresses. That's exactly what we are trying to do here. We are trying to bring in the technology, we are trying to bring in the knowledge base, we are trying to bring in the support to who would like to make their softwares compatible with all the domain names and email addresses. So there is already a standard which is online, which is available, but unfortunately not everybody knows about it and not everybody has followed that path. And that's why UA brings in that knowledge on the door by creating these awarenesses and bringing the local FICCI, which has kindly organized this first webinar to take off this initiative in India. So it's all up to us now as a volunteers to take the benefit of that knowledge and take it to our companies, take it to our region, take it to our teams. When we are out making a software, we must ensure that our software is becoming UA ready. Somebody is making an app today, for example, UA ready already. So my belief is, if let us say Arogya Setu app, if the team was aware and if it needed an email ID, could it be a UA ready app? Answer is yes. But could we have that knowledge there and allow people to register with their email IDs, which are non-ASCII characters? That's the knowledge we want to bring in and use all of your connects to make it standard process when we are making an application or a mobile app or a website. Please be UA ready so that you can accept next billion people online.
Sarika, I understand
Thank you, Dr.
Dr. Sarman would also like to add to the answer here.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
So this is Sarmad. Um, so yes, just echoed what Dr. Data said. The question is, whether the standards are there in place or not, and how can we enable UA support. So the standards are already in place. So that work actually has been done. So now the sort of the buck's been passed not to people who are developing standards, but people who are actually developing technology. And I think one of the things we want to do, in collaboration with FICCI, is to reach out to local technology developers and email service providers and email administrators, many of you who may be actually listening, to get that, motivate you to, when you now develop your systems, think about these things and make sure that the next email server you're deploying, it is configured to support internationalized email, or the next website you're making, it is updated to make sure that it can accept, for example, email addresses in Hindi or some other languages which are written and spoken in India and globally, for example. So that's really the motivation. The standards are in place. The technology implementation is lagging, and that's what we need to now fix.
Let me add a little bit more here, because another question is, do we have something for university? Yes. So we have a presentation by UA. It is available on UA website. And if we have lecturers in university who are able to take this UA knowledge further, they can take actually that presentation, and we'll be very happy to work with them to take that knowledge further. By the way, Sarmad was professor before, so you have the best guy available here to bring in the more knowledge for the universities if required, and we can find the course and presentation if any university would like to tie up. Sarika, actually, we should take this as an actionable in our hand and
Yeah,
see and
sure. I
find
was
out.
thinking, yeah, sure, sure. I was thinking maybe the next initiative we can plan it out around this area. So definitely. Okay, I'll go to the next question. There's a question that who can bid for the domain extension will a Bermuda company own Indic domains, and the timeline of availability of 7 languages?
Sarika, let me take that. Hi, this is Samiran Gupta. So there are actually two questions. Well, there's a question that was asked earlier, I saw. So I'm going to answer both of them. So when this whole process of opening up of the domain name system, or the right of the dot addresses, this process is not an ongoing process. It was done first in 2012. And then, over a period of time, a lot of applications came in. That's when, for example, from India, we saw such applications for domain names such as .state bank or .sbi, and so on and so forth. Okay, there were several of those. Now, the second round for this application process, we still don't have a date, because the community is evaluating how the first round went, whether there should be any changes, whether there should be any improvements. And that process is ongoing. If those who would like to join and see that process, I'll be very happy to guide them as to find them where they can get on that process. Now, let me answer the specific questions. Can a Bermuda-based company apply? And there was a question earlier by Mr. Pavnaja about what is the process of getting top of the, TLD with, let's say, organization in I think in Canada. So firstly, can a company from Bermuda apply? When the next round opens, and there's going to be a guidebook that will be accompanying, so that guidebook will give all information about how to apply, who can apply, what is the process and of evaluation that will take place. In there, if there is no disqualification for any company from Bermuda, I'm sure a company from Bermuda will apply for any kind of right of the top level domains. Okay. However, I cannot confirm that at this point because that process of evaluation is ongoing. And in specific response to Mr. Pavnaja, his question was, will there be language-specific top-level domains such as the term he's used for Canada, equivalent for organization? Yes, I mean, in the sense that somebody has to bid for it. And what I want to, kind of clarify over here is that getting a top-level domain is not the same as getting a domain name. Okay, where you just go to a registrar and you say I want something.com, and if that name is available, you buy it. When you are bidding for the top level domain or a TLD, which sits right off the dot, you are actually saying that you want to become a registry operator. So there are rights and responsibilities that go with that application, and there's a cost attached to it, and how that will be used, so on and so forth. All those details will also be available in the application guidebook. So I'll just stop here now, but I think I've covered a fair amount of ground.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. I have another question, which is for the ICANN only. So I'll request Mr. Hussain or between you and him, you can answer. They said that can ICANN enforce complete adoption of IDN on service providers? And they are like really suggesting that that should be done.
So ICANN is not a regulatory body, and we cannot enforce anything, but we are hopeful that the market dynamics will lead to more IDNs being used, and as Sarmad also mentioned earlier, the technology is there, the standards are there. The question is for people to start using it and implementing it, and of course ICANN is there to support you should there be problems and challenges, but we really can't mandate the use of one technology over the other.
Sure. Thank you. I have a next question. Just a second. Yeah. So the next question is, why IDN mails and domain names are not popular and wider use in India? So what are the challenges you see why this is not happening so far in India? So Dr. Data, would you like to take it up?
It's a perpetual problem and a question. So it's a demand and supply issue. So we are able to push certain governments, certain people to accept and push there. So in Rajasthan, we have more than 7 million email IDs which people use to communicate, and this is mostly used to communicate with the government services right now, where government is able to reach out to them. Now the other side of it, these email IDs, you will not see them very visible because they are not accepted well at many places because of the UA issue. That's the reason this UA exists. So can I subscribe for, let us say, Air India ticket and get my ticket on that? Answer is no. Can I get a bank account with ICICI Bank? The answer is no. Can I actually get an admission in a university with that email ID? Answer is no. Of course, I have shared with you that Google and Microsoft you can communicate with, but that's the only one use of an email. It should be accepted everywhere. Can I get an Apple iCloud account with that email ID? Answer is no. These challenges are getting solved. Now let us see the other side of it. And I will just take 30 seconds also to tell you, let us assume when these top level domain names got into existence first time, when .com, .net, .org started, was there any browser? Was there any mail client? Was there anything at that time? Was there any internet service provider? Was there mobiles? These things takes time, but I can assure you that a word is moving. These IDNs is the future, and people are going to communicate and adopt a lot more than we think. And people are, this is the way we can break the barrier and bring people online. Internet reaching to the home maybe have taken 2-3 decades, but this is not take this much time. This is going to be much faster considering we have the technologies in place. I hope it answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Data. I think we just have last 4-5 minutes left. And I'm sorry, I'll just request the participants so they can actually post their questions, give it to us. We can take offline with our panelists. We'll be happy to do so. I'm sure there are many questions now, but for paucity of time, we have to stop here. Before I stop, I, of course, like to thank all the panelists. I know there has been the people had the questions that why this is IDN is not popular, what are the things, and we know there are some challenges which are existing, but I would say that it's the combined effort which we all have to make together. The resources are available, the support is there, people are coming forward, and as FICCI also we are committed towards it. So we should all make it together being done, and we should all work towards it. So with these words, I will now request all the speakers for their brief 1-minute concluding remarks. I'll start with Mr. Sarmad Hussain. Mr. Hussain, over to you.
So thank you, Sarika. I'd like to reiterate what I just said earlier, which is that the technology, the standards are in place. What is needed is adoption of these standards and technologies, and that has to happen locally. It cannot be, excuse me. So we are working with global organizations as well to point them in the gaps which may exist. So we are working at that level, but the real change obviously is going to come from the ground up. So we hope that if you are convinced that this is something which can be done when you're designing and developing your next application or deployment, please make sure that it is you ready. And we have materials, including training materials. So feel free to reach out to us in case you have any questions in that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zain. Mr. Gupta, I think there are questions which is related to Unicode, which has come in, but we are not able to take it. But I'll request the other two presenters, Mr. Gupta and Dr. Data, while in your concluding remarks, you can just include a line on the Unicode encoding. The people who are asking the questions on the same. Mr. Gupta.
So thank you. As starters, I'd like to say that, again, thank you so much for organizing this interaction. For those who joined, obviously there are a lot of questions which are coming. We'll be very happy to take them offline later. But more importantly, what would be really, really exciting is over a period of time, if we start seeing case studies of how Indian organizations, they can be small, they can be mid-sized, they can be large. But the fact is, we'd love to see efforts being made and some case studies of how Indian organizations have overcome the UA challenge. In terms of using Unicode, I believe I'll let Dr. Data take it, but I believe that's the way forward for using Unicode and for local language email IDs. But over to you, Dr. Data.
Permission, Sarika.
Yeah, I think I was having some internet, so maybe I lost it. I'll come to you, Dr. Data. I'll just repeat what Mr. Samad Hussain has just replied to one of the participants, that IDN AI standards are based on Unicode. And yes, it is so. It is necessary to use Unicode. With these words to you, Dr. Data, for your concluding remarks, both as a chairman and a co-chair for the committee.
So before I say anything, I think we must understand 2-3 more points for India. India is 1.3 billion people. And if I can be a little bit of selfish here for India or Asia per se, we are the most benefiting community out of UA, considering the whole world. India, China, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, all those countries which are around us are going to benefit hugely with this UA. Not US too much. They will also need a benefit from us, but of course they have a need also, but we are going to be much more benefited. We must take up this as a step today. It's a milestone for today to kick off UA in a very strong way. I want to thank Vicky for accepting this responsibility and getting us all together and taking it further to the masses all over India. This is a huge step way forward for getting billions of people online. They also deserve the guest internet the way we are using internet. Of course, in this presentation and discussion, we are talking about one thing. If an email address has more than one character which is non-English or non-in a technical term, it is known as email address internationalization, and that has to come from Unicode. And I think this is what the domain names are also, and this is what our email addresses also. So I request everyone to join this initiative of Vicky, contribute in your region, bring in more people, and wherever you are working on business, I would request you and urge you to have an IDN for yourself, have an email ID, and putting it in your website or your visiting card or your brochure, and take it to the masses and start accepting them. Become a example. And we as a UASG would be very, very happy to look at those initiatives and do a case study on you. This will give you a little bit of global popularity also for the time being. I don't know how much useful it is for you, but this is what we can bring on the table to take your case and see that you are UA ready and take it to the passes. So this is a good step. Thank you, Sarika, for taking this initiative. Thank you, Vicky, for leading this. And I'm just handing over the baton to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Data. With this, we have come to the end of this first webinar, which is on the universal acceptance. And I'm sure you've heard all the eminent speakers, and you would have got a real good idea about the things, and also the intent, and also the resources and the commitment which we are showing. And we look forward to your support. I have a special thanks to Mr. Samad Hussain, who has taken out time from his schedule and joining in here, Mr. Samiran Gupta, and of course, Dr. Data, for encouraging us and motivating us for this initiative. Thank you, viewers, for joining. We look forward to get your suggestions and further participation with us. You can reach out to us anytime on vicky.ilia@vicky.com. We will get back to you with other details. We'll keep on posting on the other initiatives, which we will be coming out soon. And we really look forward to make it a real good success case study for India, for the world to consider, with the support from all of you. With these words, I like to thank you all, and remain safe, stay home, and take care, and we stay connected again. Thank you all, and good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.